of the regular, technical issues we have to have, and then the sound setting decided to turn itself all the way up again on the intro song. So we're off to a wonderful start. If nothing else goes wrong tonight, we'll be perfect. I always say that, when all the stuff just gets out of the way immediately, because there's always going to be something.
Hmm.
Technology, they swear technology will make our lives easier someday, but it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
Good evening, chat. I'm delighted to see everyone here. As always, we're going to go around and have everyone give a little introduction, just who you are, how you're related to the gaming industry, how you got into the gaming industry, and then we will start the show proper. Brad, would you like to start us off?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Brad McDevitt. I am a professional artist working in the gaming industry, and I've been at this since about 1988, so long ago that I only have blurry memories of the exact dates. I have worked for essentially every company out there, starting from Atlas Games to Zeitgeist Games, and literally. I am currently a staff artist at Goodman Games. Uh, I am a former art director at Game Designers Workshop, the Traveler People. Also a former art director for a now defunct gaming company called Dark Skull Studios. At last count, I am approaching 900 published credits. And my specialty seems to be fantasy, horror, and old school style artwork. Not sure what else to say.
That is actually perfect. And everyone who has been on this show a lot will be very familiar with my love of all things horror genre related. So, um, Zarek?
Yeah. I'm Zarek. I don't have such a long list of experience and history in the industry, but I am I'm creating a superhero TTRPG. Our company's Odin's Key Gaming. And yeah, I've been into games, both tabletop and video games, for a long time, ever since I was a little kid. I've, my family has video of me jumping on gaming systems as a little baby, so just something I've always been around and enjoyed creating for. I kind of, as a teenager, I would create my own like game ideas and things for other games that I played, and then I got heavily into tabletop gaming closer to my 20s, like in my later teen years, and that's when I got into D&D, and that got me wanting to make my own superhero system. Um, so that kind of brings us, that's the short version of it to bring us to where I'm at now. That was like, I started designing the game at the very end of 2019. So,
Okay,
yeah.
welcome. And yes, we always have to have one person to keep the rest of us motivated, who, puts all of us to shame and all the I'm like, "Oh,
Absolutely.
I have like, almost 100 articles published. Oh, no, never mind." Got to keep grinding.
Right. Something to keep reaching for. Absolutely.
Okay, and tell us about Hoodwink Games.
Hey everyone, I'm Josiah. I guess I'm the green one in the group, but that's okay. I've been involved in the industry only since the late 2010s, and my company Hoodwink Games got started up when I was younger in middle school and high school. I read Foxtrot Comics for anybody who's read it, and saw Jason and Marcus playing D&D, and I'd never heard of the game, but I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. And my Boy Scout troop and I, we cooked up a little bit of a game and we would get together and play in the evenings. And I just started to discover how awesome of a tool these storytelling games were at pulling young adults together who were socially awkward and really different and kind of nerdy and kind of isolated. And it really ignited my love of the genre and of games. So I've gone on to publish more games in college, really trying to target college students and young adults who are going through some difficult times of transition, with games that are easy to teach people, easy to learn, and start really good conversations. And that's kind of where Hoodwinks developed from.
Socially awkward? I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm a middle-aged woman that hides behind a goat.
Hey, we've all got our thing, right?
Okay, so I'm going to say a quick hello to everybody in the chat. Rio is almost always here first. Once again, once in a while, Big Ship beats him here, but once again, he has made the first entry. Action Tactics is here. He was on the show a few weeks ago. Gave a wonderful presentation. Happy to see you in the chat. Uh, Jod is saying good evening. He is always here with. He is one of our punsters in the group. Happy to have you. As your GM has also been with us before. Good to see you. Legatus is kind of amazing. Legatus is one of those people who I think doesn't sleep because they manage to be absolutely everywhere all the time.
Dang, how do we learn
It's
that power?
Yeah,
I know, right?
superpower.
If I could get away with less sleep, it would be beautiful. I get so much more done.
Hmm.
Eraserhead is my super mod. He will have your links in the chat before I even know I need them. Um, and again, apparently never sleeps. I have woken up in the middle of the night and hopped onto streams because I couldn't get back to sleep, and there he is. And we have Mark. Mark, I don't think I've seen you in the chat before, so welcome. Delighted to have new people all the time.
Yeah, cool.
Miss
That's awesome.
Miss Sparkles is here. Welcome. And I'm sure we will have more people pop in. Tomby mentioned he was going to come by at some point, and uh, this stream was named for the veggie burger specifically because Yarny, first of all, is the person who requested the Supers game, and second of all, is our unfortunate vegetarian. We tease her. Just a reminder to everyone, friend of the channel, Jacob Ironsides, has to relocate. His parents have some medical issues. They're older. Jacob himself has some medical issues. So it's becoming very difficult for them to find a safe place to go. And in order to get moved, they are going to need a lot of assistance. They can't obviously take care of these things themselves with medical issues. So we are trying very hard to put our funds together and give Jacob a little helping hand. So if you haven't already, please check out his GoFundMe. If you have already donated, please share so that other people can see. We'd really appreciate it. We're doing great. I have been so proud to be part of a community that comes together and helps people out. So thank you so much. Okay. I will pop up other people as they come in. Um, but for the moment, let's get started on the show proper. Uh, so, give me just a moment. I need to make this work properly, and we all know that I am almost as useful with technology as Roman is, for those of you who know him. Okay, Brad, do you prefer this or would you like it full screen?
I think that works.
Okay.
Do any of you other guys mind if it's full screen so people can see the detail work better?
I don't
You
mind.
you go
No,
right
not at
ahead.
all.
You
Okay,
go
I'm
right
kind of
ahead.
a
Hey,
detail
art.
freak. I'm kind of a detail freak, so thumbnails are only kind of useful.
No problem. You tell me where you need me to go, and
I don't know. That looks good to me.
you can direct me if you need other pages or things blown up or whatever you'd like.
No, I think this will work.
Perfect.
So, what do you want me to talk about?
Why don't you start with kind of how you got involved in role playing art specifically? I think most people when they think of going into art as a career, this is probably not the first thing that pops into their head, but I find it fascinating. So,
Hmm.
I was actually going to be an art teacher, but uh, I was in college and I was working. I was already a big gamer, but it and I had experimented with designing games, but it had not really even crossed my mind to do artwork for a game until I happened to be sitting at the local off-campus people's center, sitting there doodling like I always did back then and still do. Uh, and this guy comes up and says, "My friend Jim, our friend Jim Kuhn said that you're a really good artist." Well, hi, I'm Walter. My name is Walter Machinsky, and I work for a gaming company called Stellar Games, and we're looking for an artist. And he was offering me money to draw sci-fi stuff, so I jumped on that, and didn't exactly never look back, but that was definitely the start of my gaming art career. Then I started working for a couple other small gaming companies, and was still getting paid to do gaming art. And then I started moving up the ranks uh, to Game Designers Workshop, the Traveler people, then FASA, and then to other companies, and then finally up to Wizards of the Coast. And now I'm an actual full-time staff artist for Goodman Games, the producers of Dungeon Crawl Classics and X Crawl and Mutant Crawl Classics.
I'm
So that's my career in a nutshell.
I am hoping very much that we will. I contacted Goodman Games a while ago, and there's a possibility we might get them on for Mutant Carl Classics. So
Oh,
my fingers are crossed.
yeah, that
Mhm.
would be awesome.
Um. Oh, I just had a question for you, and now I've forgotten what it was. I was distracted by trying to make sure that your website got up there for everybody.
Okay.
Um. Oh, so I was thinking about the time periods and the companies you were working for. Did you by any chance ever cross paths with Tom Kane? He was a previous guest on this.
Tom,
Yeah, Tom Kane. He wrote several GURPS books. He wrote for Shadowrun. He
name,
wrote a bunch of the Ars Magica supplements.
no, because I mostly am. I know more art, the other artists. Uh, I did work for Atlas Games, so there's a possibility we worked on a project together. I have actually done very little work with Steve Jackson Games, and not a whole lot with Shadowrun.
I was just curious because the time periods were pretty identical based on what he said when he was on the show. So,
Nope.
and you have worked for so many people. It just seemed like you might have at least kind of passed as far as knowing each other.
It's possible because I used to go to Gen Con all the time, but for the past several years, I've mostly concentrated on just being part of the Goodman Games crowd,
Hmm. How
especially
long?
as they became more and more my sole or my primary, even before I became a staff artist, my primary freelance account. It was becoming more and more of a, do I really need to like really stomp around Gen Con and such, looking for any and all artists possible?
Hmm. Um, how long have you been working for Goodman exclusively?
About 2.5 years now, and I
I
still do very occasional freelance jobs, but it's always like third party stuff for supporting stuff for Goodman, like Weird Frontiers or other or X Crawl Classics, third
Hmm.
party, DCC, third party, yada yada yada.
Hmm.
Hmm. Do you have a favorite thing that you've drawn over your career?
Okay, I'm never quite sure what to answer when somebody says that. Do you mean like genres, favorite illustration?
Oh, I was intentionally trying to leave it open because I assume that's like me being forced to pick a favorite book.
Yeah. Horror is probably my all-time favorite because anyone who knows me knows. I mean, I started reading horror almost before I could read. One of my first memories was Bernie Wrightson's run on Swamp Thing
Hmm.
back in the mid '70s. So, and big H.P. Lovecraft fan, Robert Bloch, etc., etc.
It's interesting. I'm not sure why, but I never consider Swamp Thing horror. Probably
Really?
because probably because, I also was kind of grew up on like Lovecraftian stuff, and that's so much more like psychological mind mess with your mind stuff as
Hmm.
opposed to the very tangible Swamp Thing horror.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But yeah, at any rate, that kind of stuff was my that's always been my first love. I mean, if you look at even the little thumbnails, it's like scary zombies, a creepy looking hammer, a kind of creepy looking dwarf, you know.
I love that dwarf picture. Does
Hmm.
that blow up? Do you mind if I
No, go for it.
let's see. Do I just click on it? Oh, I was hoping I was going to be able to zoom, but I can't.
Mm,
Yeah, I love the detail even in around the eyes and with the
Yeah,
scarring.
yeah, that's amazing. Holy cow.
It is
yeah,
really clean. That is super
actually,
cool.
I did that for entertainment one
Ah, there we
day.
go.
There we go. Yeah, that's actually something I just did as a piece of stock art for Goodman Games one day when I was bored and wasn't feeling inspired to do anything that I should have actually been working on. And I just drew this up and sent it to Matt. It's like, hey, do you guys have any use for this dwarf? And lo and behold, about 6 months later, uh, I'm flipping through a contributor's copy, and there's the dwarf glaring back at me.
Even the earring is fascinating. It's just so unique in how it like curves around.
Yeah,
So
Hmm.
go
I
ahead.
obviously have zero artistic capability. I literally can't draw straight lines. I'm one of those. I can't remember what it's called, but there's a thing where you can't visualize. Um,
I ooh,
yeah, there's a I can't remember what it's called, but there's a condition where like apparently most people can like close their eyes and like visualize an apple. Or
mm-hmm.
it was years before I understood that that was like other people could do that. I always thought that I don't know. It just didn't occur to me that was a thing people do because I
Wow,
don't.
wow. That's
um,
no offense, but that sounds like an absolutely miserable way because I'm used to being able to have someone begin to describe things and I can just do it. Not to toot my own horn too much, I used to do graphic design for a local business, and that actually uh, serviced the local Greek community, as in Greek, as in fraternities and sororities.
mhm.
And I went in just to see how things were going, and he said, "Hey, I think I've got a possible job for you. I just got a job from I forget who it was, you know." And he handed me a piece of sketch of scrap paper, and he's describing it to me, and I'm just sitting there drawing it as he's describing it. He's like, "It's like the words are coming out of my mouth through you right onto the paper." He
That's
was
Yeah,
just
awesome.
he was just utterly astonished that I'm sitting there sketching out the illustration as he's describing it to me.
yeah. I mean, like if Zarek turned his camera off right now, I would be able to tell you he had a beard and dark hair, and that would be it. Like the whole out of sight, out of mind. Like I literally like once I cannot see it, it's just visually gone.
Oh, that's
Hmm.
rough.
Yeah, I
Um,
can't
so
imagine.
so yes, I have zero artistic capability, in large part because of that.
Mm.
Um, and so I am absolutely fascinated with people who can do this kind of thing, because it is as alien to me as this picture is to everyone.
Yeah,
I
that
have
is
a
so
question.
cool.
Can I jump in there really
Sure,
quick?
go for it.
I'm so a huge fan of Lovecraft, and what you're like the work that they're showing on the screen right now, just so cool. But I'm really curious because in Lovecraft, so much of what he describes is just and terrible thing happened that can't be described. So I'm
And then he
curious,
spent
like,
15 pages describing it.
yeah, yeah. So like, what, like, as an illustrator, where do you begin with that type of a genre? Because this is amazing. Do you just picture it in your head, or like, where does that come from?
Well, one advantage I have as a commercial artist is, in general, I have work orders, from the client that says, "Hey, we need a blank." So I at least have a starting spot. Like if somebody says, "Okay, we need a dragon," okay, I now it's just a question of like, okay, well, how dragonish do I want to look? What pose? And then it's usually off to Google to get the fine details of like a believable head structure, so on and so forth.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's other than that, I think it just comes from a very sick and twisted and probably completely unhealthy mind imagination.
Yeah, I have. So I don't have aphantasia. I can like picture images in my mind and like an apple. I can see it in like 3 dimensions and rotate it, but I'm horrible at art. I'm not a good artist whatsoever. And
It's only
so,
it's only taken me 59 years to get to this point. Don't feel bad. You've got a
yeah,
ways to go yet.
I wish I could get into art. I mean, I want to try someday, but I think working with an artist myself, like what you were just talking about, where someone was describing something and it's like the words just became a picture on the page. That's what it's been like working with my artists, and it's so awesome because I have
Hmm.
very vivid imagery in my mind of things, and it's lovely to have somebody that like I can describe that to, and they can make what is in my head.
Hmm.
So I that's really awesome. I love art
Okay.
for that kind of
Yeah.
reason. So and it's yeah, just what Josiah said, like I want to echo. Like
Yeah.
I don't even know how you begin to draw this creature, like where you start from and how you get there. It's so impressive.
Half the time, I don't know until the sketch is halfway done. It's like, and there have been literally a few times that I have, especially when I'm doing some of my horror stuff, my wilder horror stuff. I get the picture done, then I look at it, it's like, okay, I think my next stop will be the neighborhood bar so I can kind of wash some of the memory of this illustration out of my head.
Yeah, I can imagine that with horror, especially, right? You like trying to make something actually horrific. You've got to reach down into dark places, which is a skill as well.
Are you familiar with the Malaysian folklore of a penanggalan?
No.
Mm-mm.
Look it up real fast, and let me put it this way: any illustration that requires you to have a copy of Gray's Anatomy right there open for photo reference, you are not going to enjoy the final experience.
Yikes.
So
Yeah,
there are a lot of like,
I actually got bitched out by a client because I did an illustration of one of those monsters for Alderac Entertainment and sent off the artwork. And a couple days later, the editor of the magazine, like, Brad, next time, please try to remember this is supposed to be a family magazine.
Mm.
Yeah, it's a floating head with organs attached, right? Is that what it is?
And I got very, very realistic with the organs attached.
Wow,
Yikes.
grotesque.
I was very careful before I blew this one up because I was trying to make sure that this one was not going to get me banned by YouTube.
Gee, I can't imagine why this picture might piss off YouTube.
It's I don't think it will actually. But it's very kind of Hellraiser-esque, and I do love
Mhm.
Hellraiser.
Oh, Hellraiser, Cenobites are some of my favorite monsters when I get a chance to draw them. Or anytime I get to wander over into Clive Barker territory, I'm a happy camper.
You have a question from the chat. In modules, there are sometimes illustrations of various rooms, corridors, the players are about to go into? Which is harder, generic corridors or designing monsters?
Generic corridors are easier. Designing monsters is much more fun because there's only so much you can do with, oh, look, it's a hallway.
I kind of thought that might be what you were going to say.
I mean,
Yeah.
in the early days of Dungeon Crawl Classics, I did a lot of players' handouts that were basically pictures of rooms and corridors and such. And it's like, it pays the bills, it pays the bills, it pays the bills.
Yeah, that's cool.
So a lot of
I haven't even seen some of these pictures in quite a while.
horror authors will talk about like dreaming or having, their stories being based on dreams in any way, shape, or form.
Hmm.
Does any of your artwork come?
Nope, not in the slightest.
Hmm. That
I have some of the most boring dreams you. Let me put it this way: most of my dreams are boring enough that by the time I wake up, 2 minutes afterwards, like, did I have a weird dream last night? No, I had a dream about going to work. I have lots of dreams about my days when I used to work in the real world, which is great. I used to work at a pizza parlor. It's like, really, I had another dream about making pizzas. Yay!
True horror. That's true horror
Sticks
right
with
there.
you.
Well, this is Slice and Dice. We do run on pizza and role playing games.
Mm, and we love it.
So,
Eraserhead says I don't dream, not while I'm sleeping at least. Except we all know he doesn't sleep, so that doesn't count.
Right.
That's actually how I discovered that other people visualize. Was somebody was talking about seeing things in their dreams, and I was like, "You do what?"
yeah,
Wow, I cannot imagine not seeing things in my dreams. I don't remember a lot of my,
that would
or I
drive
don't
me
know if I even
crazy.
have dreams anymore,
Did
but
I do that?
I always had very vivid dreams.
It's under your name.
Oh, I guess it is. Um, see, one problem with being especially a staff artist, you churn out so much artwork that sometimes by the time you're basically done with one illustration, you're mentally on to the second next illustration. I mean, this has been kind of a poor year for productivity for me, and I'm only at about 50 illustrations.
Hmm.
Only 50 illustrations.
Yeah, I'm kind of sitting here going, "How do you draw that fast?" But then,
Mhm.
but
Um,
then I also read exceptionally fast, and people think I'm strange that way. So,
there was one year I started adding up how many I did. I lost track of 240 illustrations.
Holy cow.
That's a lot.
Wow. Was that freelance or when you
Yeah, that,
were?
that was back when I was freelancing, and a lot of those were like little headshots. So
Mm.
Mhm.
that's so. I mean, when you're doing headshots, you can really speed up. You can really crank them out.
hmm
But yeah,
so Legatus wants to know: do you do architecture, fantasy castles, bazaars, tavern exteriors, etc.?
if the work order is specified that, and if the client is paying, why yes, I will do tavern exteriors and bazaars.
Yeah, I think I saw a castle just a little bit ago that you were sharing.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that was for a game that ended up being canceled because it was a boyfriend and girlfriend running the company, and they broke up.
Oof.
Ooh,
Oh,
that's dangerous.
Yeah, that
well, you
is.
made a great piece of art for it. I guess
Yeah.
there's something good came of it.
Oh, I did a ton of artwork for them, and thank God I got paid before they decided to go their separate ways.
Hmm.
Yeah, the awesome husband and I get along wonderfully. I love him dearly. I would never run a business with him.
Yeah, that is always a danger.
I would never work in the same I would never work in the same business as him just
Now,
because.
my wife and I actually both work for Goodman Games, or have in the past, till her health problems became too much of a problem. But she was over in customer service and fulfillment and stuff like that. And I'm sitting back here drawing, oh, look, it's a kobold with two heads. Sure, why not? I mean,
Uh
I think I literally did this particular piece maybe 2 weeks ago, I think.
Oh wow. Okay. Awesome. That's cool that they let you put it on your DeviantArt page. And,
It's free advertising for Good in the Games.
right, right.
Fair point. Yeah.
So Rachel says she's done 6 this year. Did you find that you were able to pick up pace the further into your career and the more practice you had?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, because it used to be like, especially, I would do like one good illustration a week, and now a typical week for me is anywhere from 3 to 5 illustrations.
Hmm.
Wow.
I mean, like I said, I'm a staff artist. I'm expected to crank out the artwork for to get that salary.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I suppose it's different if you're doing it 40 hours a week as opposed to doing it in between whatever your 40 hours a week is.
Hmm.
What the one I was working at the pizza part does Brad work physical media mostly, then usually touch up in Photoshop, obviously, and sometimes I will tone the artwork in Photoshop. But other than that, everything starts physical.
Awesome. I feel like there's like another layer of appreciation almost for that.
Hmm.
I like art, as I mentioned earlier, so I had taken an art class in college where we were using charcoal, and not smudging the art was a skill on its own.
Oh yeah. What I usually do to avoid smudges is I usually have like a napkin down, or sometimes in the past I've even worn gloves to draw,
Mm.
Hmm.
and of course beholders.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It really comes across too, like the shading, and I feel like you can even just at a almost unrecognizable scale, just the pencil and the physical aspect of it just adds a new layer to it. That's super cool.
Thank you.
Hmm.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is for Terror from the Underdeep, which is going to be this ridiculously large box set coming from Goodman Games later on this year. I think it's going to be a Gen Con release.
Mm.
Yeah, I've heard of that. It's sounds exciting. I like too. I almost wanted to mention, like especially on this, it almost feels like torchlight lighting the beholder's
Mm.
face from the side. That's just
Thank you.
awesome.
Thank you.
Hmm.
I love, and actually, it quite often helps me for really great taking pictures up to the next level if I actually visualize a light source.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Because sometimes it's really easy just to do kind of a neutral light source, but then you don't get some of the cooler, ooh, this shadow is falling here. And it adds a little bit of extra dimensionality to add that shading.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it can make a big difference too. So I possibly because I don't visualize in my head, I tend to pay attention to real world or media things visually a lot. And I worked in a theater when I was in college, so I pay attention to lighting and stuff. So like Two Face in Batman tends to always, even before even when he's Harvey Dent, he always tends to be lit in a way that makes half of his face dark as a
Mm-hmm.
foreshadowing thing.
Hmm.
Um, and even though you know it's coming, it's still great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm,
S
I'm, I'm just waiting for them to eventually do Two Face properly live.
Nah,
Yeah.
Oh god, I am
I don't.
working on and looking for artists to populate pages. Oh, how do I go about asking for artists? Um,
I didn't know if you were going to need clarification for this one.
there are various forums at Facebook, and there's always the freelancers forum at RPGNet. And I'm betting if you look, there's a freelancers forum at like Blue Sky. Uh, as far as needing some help and advice, that's a little bit too complicated to go into just in chat here.
Hmm.
Um, if you want a JAWD, if you want to contact me over Facebook, I would be glad to talk to you more there.
There's also, I usually say this at the end, but so I also have a Discord so that people can kind of stay in touch with the audience as you have, like, if you have Kickstarters that are developing or projects that are developing. so you can kind of post announcements there. So I
Hmm.
don't know if
Yeah,
that would. I don't.
if you can shoot me your Discord just over PM at Facebook. I'm trying to get back into using Discord. I my my wife had to drag me kicking and screaming onto social media at all.
Yeah, same, same. I've actually only
Yeah,
been on social media for, I don't know, 3 years, and it was
yeah,
because I was doing a fundraiser for a nonprofit.
yeah.
Mm.
And then of course I had to eat a huge amount of crow because it was less than a week after I finally joined Facebook, and that was my first. And Mongoose Publishing was saying like, "Hey, we want you to do work for us."
Oh, that's got to feel pretty good though.
Oh yeah, I still haven't lived it down though.
Yeah.
The Mad Norseman has just joined us. I wish you'd been here a little bit earlier. We've been kind of going through some of his artwork, and as I recall, you're very big on black and white sketches too. So,
Yeah.
Legata says, "Have you done era pieces? Aladdin and the
Um,
Lamp, King Arthur, Samurai, Ancient Romans, Egyptians, etc., or just more monsters?"
Again, it depends on what the person's paying me to. I've never done Aladdin and the Lamp. I've done tons of medieval, knights and such. I've done some samurai, uh, ancient Romans and Egyptians. That would probably be covered easily by Caverns of Thracia and the Dark Tower series stuff that I did for Goodman Games last year.
I think probably it was in part that there are some artists that just won't draw people. I understand people are like very, very hard to draw.
Oh
Hmm.
yeah. Actually, horses are much harder to draw than people.
Interesting.
Horses, if you try to draw a horse just from memory, you are going to it up.
I can
Um,
imagine it's probably something to do with the body proportions or
Body
something.
proportions and the shapes of the muscles.
Hmm.
I was
Mm.
gonna say, having seen a lot of horses in real life, I imagine it's got to have something to do with the muscular.
Yeah, you see people every day. Most people don't see horses every day,
Right.
And yet,
or whatever
and
the
yet,
hell this thing is. I'm not sure what, you know, you don't see that every day.
if you get it wrong, even people who have never seen a horse before will somehow know that it seems off.
Hmm.
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 It's
Yeah.
almost like racial memory.
Rachel says drawing horses from memory leads to dragons.
Fair enough. I can believe that.
Was this for something, or was it just kind of a
I'm
like
pretty
the dwarf?
sure this, if I remember correctly, this was for Chaosium originally.
That makes sense.
Mm.
Oh,
Yeah.
can I take just a split second to toot my own horn? Otherwise,
Sure.
and this will actually be interesting to those of you who are uh, maybe looking to publish artwork and needing artwork. At Drive Through RPG under Postmortem Studios, I have a huge archive of stock art priced from $4 to $6 called Clip Art Critters. And I kid you not, this is just the way this fell out, 666 entries.
Wow.
For
Dang.
Hmm.
example, if you notice this is CAC 388.
I I don't know. That almost feels like you don't want to draw after that, just because it's great it's great coincidental advertising.
Hmm.
But yeah, that is there a Facebook page for this artwork? If you go to, I think it's just Bradley K. McDevitt Illustration at Facebook.
Yeah,
I
and
like
Goodman
this one.
Games probably shares quite a bit of your art. Sorry.
Actually,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
okay, how did you mean by that? I'm sorry.
Oh, I just imagine I don't I see Goodman Games on Facebook, like their posts sometimes. I imagine some of your artwork gets shown there.
Oh yeah, and trust me, I make sure that I show almost everything that I get done. That if a project has been announced, I'll show it off because I figure it's like, if hearing about this project means somebody's going to their happy butt down to the gaming store and buy it, that translates to job security for me.
Hmm. Hmm.
I really like this one a lot.
Thank you. This actually I just did for shits. Excuse me, for giggles and you know what's one day.
It's quite all right. We are 10 minute. We are more than 10 minutes in, so therefore YouTube it will not. I mean, I'm not monetized anyway, but they won't ding me for curse words. For some reason, they only ding if you do it in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah,
That makes utterly no sense, but hey, this is YouTube.
I was just gonna say it's YouTube, so
Oh, well, thank you, Eraserhead.
probably because so few people watch past that time on anything.
Right.
Just the modern day.
Well, I
so
hope
for
I haven't bored people to the point where they tuned out after 9 minutes.
so for those of you who, I mean, it's one of the reasons we do the introductions first because most people don't curse when they're talking about how they got into board games.
Right.
Hmm.
Um, Postmortem Studios, for those of you who were here, would be Grim Jim, who has been on this show a couple of times.
Mm-hmm. Grim Jim's a sweetheart. He gets a bad reputation, but he really is a sweetheart. And
I
I've,
mean,
I've made the comment more than once. If he wasn't a sweetheart and if he was the monster people claim to be, Donna would have kicked his ass to the curb by now.
I don't quite understand why he has a reputation. But then I very frequently don't understand why people get upset with me over things either. So
Some people are looking to be offended,
I'm a
and
I'm a little oblivious.
and bless his pointed little head, but Grim Jim does occasionally kind of like, Grim, you might want to keep that particular opinion to yourself, but that's life. That almost looks like something from the Dark Crystal. Oh my god, it is. I didn't even realize that I was modeling it after one of the critters from Dark Crystal when I drew it.
Yeah, the one that was just up there. You're right. Now that you mention it, that's
Yeah,
very,
thank you.
yeah.
I think Rachel likes the hammer.
Oh, I actually really enjoyed it. It's like, okay, it's a drawing of a hammer. Okay, how can I make this interesting? But I think I pulled it off.
I love how textured it looks.
Thank
Yeah.
you. I love doing my textures. Of course, I mean this picture should have only taken like maybe 45 minutes overall, and I somehow ended up spending like 4 hours on it. Oops.
Well, jobs worth doing are worth doing well.
Hmm.
Exactly. I look at it this way: the gaming industry is competitive enough that if you simply walk in, it's like, well, I'm just going to do the minimum amount of effort to sell it, you're going to get minimum sales or minimum excitement from the viewers.
Hmm.
So always try to, I always try to like, if I can take it up a notch, if I have the time at all, I will take it up that notch.
So I want to make sure everyone else gets to do their games.
Oh yeah,
But I
sorry
don't.
guys.
No,
No.
no, I don't want to deny. I mean, I think the panel has been doing as much talking as the chat has. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I've enjoyed this.
No,
Hmm.
thank
I
you.
love good art, and there's something about black and white art that's like
there is.
making it look 3D and like having shadows when it's black and white is just something else. It's very impressive.
There is some colored in here, but I just love black and white art so much. I just keep skipping all the colored stuff.
If can you tell that black and the color, my color work is not as strong. It has gotten stronger over the years, but I mean, if you notice, this is from 7 or 8 years ago. Some of these pieces I would love to take the time to revisit. Um, can you show the plant lady that I posted on DeviantArt a couple days ago?
I can.
She should still be on the front page of my DeviantArt.
Yeah, the problem is I have wandered so far away at this point
Oops.
that um
Okay, there. Azathoth rules all. That's a better example of my color work. Also, the elder thing
which
beside
this
it.
one here.
Yeah.
Mm.
Oh yeah, more
That's
depth
cool.
to it. Yeah.
Hmm. Well, one thing I used to use an inferior coloring program, and finally, um, I had to switch over to Photoshop. And after about 3 weeks of using that, I wanted to go back in time and kick my former self's ass that I avoided Photoshop for so long.
So most of your coloring is done digitally then.
Yes, except pretty much all the
Ah, there
work,
we go.
the coloring I do for Goodman Games is markers or actual paint.
Oh wow.
Wow.
Okay.
Mm.
So for good games, it's not digital. Wow.
No, no. And like
Wow.
I said, this started as a black and white piece for Chaosium, and then when I recycled it as for for use as a clip art critter, that's when I took a couple hours. It's like, okay, let's run this thing through Photoshop and see what happens.
hmm
Okay, do we have any other questions from the chat? All right.
Looks
Thank
like,
you so much. That was absolutely fascinating.
thank you.
Mm.
Now let's see if I can remember how to get us all back to status here.
We've
Man,
reorganized.
I was going to say I managed somehow we managed to end up in almost exactly the opposite order.
You got us there, though. It's pretty smooth.
Okay, now this is going to be fun because this is the newest EV Mux glitch. Can I stop sharing my screen without everything going black?
Mm.
We'll find out in a minute. I think it was because I would stop sharing from the studio, and I don't think it liked that very much.
Mm.
If I
Um,
may say so, that was probably better than just, people looking at my wonderful face. And it's like, so what's the big deal with this guy's artwork?
okay, so Zarek, Yarnwitch has just entered the chat, and she was the she or the alleged husband, I believe, were the Supers fans.
Oh, okay.
So Mad Norseman got here in time for the artwork, and Yarnwitch got here in time for the Supers.
Awesome. Yeah. Um, so Indominant is a superhero RPG. Um, a little more like modern, if you will, I guess, in not like in our artwork style, but also our game design. We're a little bit more crunchy, tactical, teamwork oriented. We have a lot of mechanics and systems that really promote working together as a team. And like your characters fill a specific role with their archetype, but we also have a lot of room for creativity, especially outside of combat. So I know usually when I say crunchy, some people just kind of like immediately assume, oh, it's just fight and nothing else. So I like to mention that early on. But yeah, um, character creation, like combat is a big focus of our rules, and then non-combat stuff we have a little lighter rules on because if we, my view is like if we set one way for non-combat to happen, then it's going to be very stagnant to me. So a lot of people play non-combat stuff very differently and look at things in their own way. So um, yeah, and oh, now I'm big on the screen. um, but yeah, you
Sorry,
start
I
by.
should have done that earlier.
It's okay, no worries. When you create a character, you start by picking an archetype, which is like your role for your team, and then you pick your power set. You can mix and match any archetype and power set. And then there's tons of story customization that you have. We've got power origins for like technology, mutation, magic, science, or and natural, and then different callings. We used to call them backgrounds, and we figured for superheroes, usually like when they get their powers, and which is when we wanted to focus on for your character story, is what they're going to do now that they have their powers, and so what their calling is, to use their powers to affect the world around them. And yeah, so there's tons of story customization and flavor customization. And it's meant to be a team oriented game in combat. We use a D20 with a roll high, add modifiers kind of system, but we've done a lot to trim and simplify the rules so that it's not very burdensome. I relate the game to like a mix between just because most people know them, D&D and 5e and Pathfinder 2e, but Pathfinder has a lot of rules. We went the other way where we like trim out a lot of rules so that it's easy to learn and pick up for new players. We've had players with no experience in TTRPGs pick up the game and learn how to play in like 15 to 30 minutes. And then, if we give them a pre-gen character, then they're off to the races from there. But even character creation usually only takes like 15 to 30 minutes as well.
May I make a comment real fast?
Of course.
Um, I was actually talking to the designer of the old Marvel superheroes game, yay back around what 91 or so.
The face rip?
Was it? Yes.
Yeah.
And I actually asked Jeff, like, why did you make the game so simple? Because there were some people who, especially hardcore gamers, who are like, "Well, this system's just far too simple." And he looked at me like, "Brad, it's because this is aimed at comic book fans, not gamers."
Mm.
They reduced the complexity of the rules as far as they could, so that yeah, the people who had never picked up a game before could still play it. And
Mm-hmm.
look, it's to a lot of gamers, the face rip is still kind of the gold standard of easy to grasp mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah,
There's
it's
some,
very rules light too for the most part.
Mhm. And I played Marvel superheroes for several years, and I found that how light the rules were left lots of room for actual role play, not
Mhm.
sitting there stay like, well, on page 73 it says I can do that.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's kind of our approach. Like I said, we're crunchy superhero game, which is very rare. Mutants and Masterminds is a very crunchy one, but generally, most superhero systems are on the lighter side and more narrative. But we leave room, like in your powers, to be very creative, and we don't say like, "Oh, you do this exact thing,"
Mm.
and so it always looks the same way. Like, you know, when it's described, we leave a lot of description up to the player.
Good.
Um, and yeah, because that exact thing, right? Like, not everybody who uses fire powers is going to do it in the same way, or um, everybody who's super strong. There's Superman, or you might have somebody with like a mechanized exoskeleton that makes them strong, or something like that. So, in superheroes, you have to have a lot of room for things like that.
Well, kind of like in the old Champions game, if you had a fire blast, ice blast, earth blast, whatever, it was just defined as an energy blast kind of
Hmm.
sort. You know, you got to describe the whether it was fire or whatever as side effects.
Right. Yeah. And Legatus asked, you can become a villain. Primarily, my view of superheroes is they should generally be icons of good. Like, that's what makes a superhero. But you can play a villain in our system. Um,
Mm.
it's just kind of more focused on being heroes. You don't have to actually be a hero, but being a super and using your powers and doing things that are meant to like improve the world and make things better for everybody. And our game is also a sci-fi setting, so I guess it's very common for like DC and Marvel to be very sci-fi as well, right? But we're actually like set in the future, um, and so there's a whole universe to improve. That's another choice we made. That way, the universe is infinite, right? So there's an infinite number of planets you can visit, um, and we kind of hand wave how you can travel between galaxies, because in reality that would be nearly impossible. So.
Um, so I have always been a big fan of like Doctor Doom, who is
Mhm,
technically a villain, but who works with the heroes several times.
mhm.
Um, and who has, I think, in the comics been shown several times to be honestly, honestly believes that his path will lead to a better life for mankind.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Um, so terrible actions but good intentions.
Yeah,
Um, is there more like black and white in your game, or is there room for that kind of? I mean, most superhero stuff is very black and white. He's kind of an exception.
Yeah, well, funny about Doctor Doom, right? To him, he's doing things that are going to improve the world, right? But like, I think from the sort of base perspective, he's evil and he's doing bad things, right? So I would say for the most part, it's black and white. Um, but we do leave room. Like my preferred method would be kind of like black and white. Like you're doing good. You're not just like killing people, or you're trying to save the most lives. Um, things of that nature. But I think you could absolutely have. There's room for you to play a different way where maybe the heroes are sort of like Doctor Doom-esque characters.
I guess
Uh,
Magneto would probably be the better known, more
yeah,
famous
Magneto.
example of that. Like he really believes that he's doing the best he can for mutants, and we feel for the mutants, but we're also people, so we don't want him to win.
Yeah, he's a very interesting character in that regard, right? Because um, I don't know. I think he's almost more good than Doctor Doom. I would say more often because he's kind of doing what's necessary. Like he accepts that what he's doing isn't necessarily good, but he's doing what he thinks is necessary for the good of um, the mutants, right?
Yeah, he thinks that in the long run he will be saving the most people.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
Legata says, "Is this set in the future, like the Legion of Superheroes?"
Yeah, it's 2184, so it's like 150 years, a little more than that in the future. Um, at some point, like late 2000s, aliens showed up. Not just one species. There was three species. They showed up in a spaceship. They were like on a expedition to travel to a different universe. Like they were, pushing the bounds of their technology, and they arrived in our galaxy. And they came to Earth because they saw there was people living there, and yeah, the humans kind of made an agreement with them because they had superheroes started developing on Earth and got their way into the we call it the IDC, the Intergalactic Defense Council, which is sort of like the intergalactic government of sorts, where there's council members from every society that sit on the board to make sure like everybody's society is being considered and has way and like say in things. And then the GLU or GLUE is the organization that sort of organizes the heroes and the supers. That's the Galactic Legion United. So generally, most characters will work for or with the Galactic Legion United. Uh, but again, that's just our core, like our canon. You don't have to play that way, but um, yeah. And then Yarnwich mentioned, I did want to touch on it, that their comment was not all TTRPG fans want crunchy mechanics. I think something I like to say, we made a crunchy game, but like I said, we also simplified a lot of things. I don't think you need to have complex rules to have a crunchy game. The complex and crunchy aren't like tied at the hip, if you will.
I
So
mean,
we have,
it's also very much a gradient. Like, I mean, there's tune
yeah,
and there's palladium.
right, yeah, and so we're like crunchy. There's numbers, but it's not very large numbers, and Um, it's also not like very complex rules. We try to have the rules very simple and straightforward so you can play. And the crunch comes more in the form of like making your character and working together with your teammates to uh, overcome challenge. Because that's another thing I think is important for superheroes is that you need to overcome challenges in order to. I mean, that's like what makes somebody brave and heroic is to me like an invincible like Superman. I always dig on Superman, or at least the more modern Superman. He's just invincible. So like nothing's really a challenge for him, and except for like interpersonal things and trying to save like Lois Lane, right? Um, but if you have to overcome a challenge, that to me is like the defining part of a hero is they do it even though it's difficult and hard, and it's the hard decision or the hard thing to do, but they do it still.
So my hot take so far this year has been, well, okay, one of my hot takes. has been that I have always found Superman to be kind of uninteresting because he's so like you have to get so super villained in order to even be a challenge. I mean, the
Hmm.
old Superman didn't have nearly as much like stuff,
Yeah.
and he's gotten more powerful with time. So the new Superman movie, the first trailer, when the first thing you see is him hit the ground, that is the first time I have ever been interested in a Superman anything for years. So
Right. What hurt him? Like when it's Superman and he's hurt, something has to be
and
either.
badly.
Yeah, yeah. Either he's not just invincible, or there's something that's a challenge for him. Yeah, absolutely.
Did you have a particular way you approach creating the mechanics of superpowers, and did you run into any challenges with odd powers like Green Lantern or Rogue?
So, um, yes, in some senses, like we've had to create. I mean, creating mechanics is fun, but it can be difficult to create a mechanic that fits a theme. And so the way our game works is you have your power set. Generally, you only have one. That's the standard way of playing. Is every character has one, and those are things that are more specific in the things that they do, but not in like how they work. So fire manipulation, ice, earth, electricity, martial arts, gadgetry, which was one of the really complex ones, psionics, super strength, and light energy. I just named all 10. So those are our 10 first power sets. Um, and we wanted to start with those because they cover most of the bases for most superheroes, like most popular superheroes. But they're simple enough that, as we're still designing the game as a whole, and this is our first game that we're designing, we're not going to mess up ones like super speed or like gravity control and things that are a lot more complex and potentially game breaking. Um, and so for something like Green Lantern, that's where what I was saying earlier about having loose enough descriptions and mechanics is really important. So you could play a Green Lantern character, but we don't have powers that's like, called something like light constructs or something like that. It's not that specific. I know I said there's specific things like fire manipulation, but we don't say that it's like, oh, you shoot fireballs. It's more like you can control fire and how you do that and in what specific ways the fire kind of what's the word becomes in the world. Like you have maybe a fireball, but how you shoot that is up to you. And so there's a number of ways. It's a topic that comes up a lot because people want to make popular superheroes like that. Rogue for sure does not work just because stealing people's powers is very complex. So that's not there, at least right now. I'm not saying we'll never do something like that, but for Green Lantern, you could use like light energy, or I mean, you could reflavor, I mean, even ice or earth or things like that into Green Lantern and using, the willpower to create those constructs. Or even gadgetry. Like you can get very creative with it. And even me creating the game, a lot of people that have joined our community and started creating characters, they have blown me away with the amount of creativity they come up within our system. And I've always tried to explain to people how much room there is for that creativity, but all of the community members have just shown me they've done a much better job showing that than I could ever describe. So
Okay, in Superman lore, he has a weakness to kryptonite and magic. Do you add weakness to your superheroes?
you could. It's more of a story thing. We don't necessarily have like a choose a weakness where you have to have something of that nature, but you absolutely could. Like one of our characters, his name is Super Sinew. His superpower is that he grows parts of his body, but he doesn't have very good control over that, and so he has special technology that limits his powers so that he doesn't like break his body apart. And so a weakness of his would be like an EMP maybe, or if somebody broke the technology, he would have to stop fighting because he would potentially like kill himself with his powers. So it's more open for you to create that story and those weaknesses and how those interact in the game. Because for the way I approach game design is that is so broad. I can't really make a mechanic that's going to work for every possible weakness that somebody can come up with. And so we give guidance for things like that. We call the game master the comic editor. And so yeah, a lot of the game master side of things is, or the comic editor side. Now that I've explained that, is guidance and tips and tricks on how to input things like that into the game.
So Mad Norseman had a question about oh, what did he call it?
Archetype
It's
hybrids.
Yeah, I assume it's sort of like Sue Storm has both a shield and she can become invisible.
Yeah, so we do have in our, I guess I didn't say one of the most important things. We have a backer kit that's launching right now, or that's live right now. We're about halfway through. And that backer kit's for our first book. It's our first core rule book. We have 3 core rule books that we will be creating. And this is the Supers Information Codex, which is all the player side of things, all the player options, and all the rules. We're going to give sort of a starter document for comic editors, and then we also have a free PDF called our Game System Primer that has all the game rules as well. And that PDF it's 196 pages, but it's everything you need to play up to level 5. And the multi-class thing in our game would be multiple power sets, because you can't really mix archetypes, because that's like mixing Hulk and Sue Storm. Like the way that they fight and interact with villains is so different. You can't do both. Kind of. They're almost like antithetical to each other. And yeah, I appreciate it. Our artist is amazing. I was mentioning it earlier. He's very good. Um, but
And this has been fully backed with 15 days left to go.
yeah, we hit our funding goals 6 days in. We hit 15,000 raised, so we're officially successful, and we're really close. I didn't get to see, but we're at 297, so that puts us only 3 away from our next stretch goal.
Nice.
But
Congratulations. That's super impressive. That's really
thank you,
cool.
Yeah,
thank you.
so you're at
And I don't think I quite got the final answer there for Mad Norseman, but we have a optional rule in the Supers Information Codex for having 2 power sets and having. So yes, there is a way to kind of mix and match, but it's complex and has a lot of implications on the game's balance. So we have that as an optional rule. Yeah.
that's a pretty incredible drawing right there too.
Oh yeah. I gush about art in general, and I love our artist. And the person who asked about art, uh, another place I was going to mention was Reddit. There's some subreddits for like freelance for hire stuff for artists, and then we found our artist on Instagram. That's where a lot of comic book artists are, and he's an aspiring comic book artist. So yeah,
So for the panelists, just so I didn't forget, I put the Discord link into the private chat, so you should all have access to that too.
yeah,
So you're what, less than $2,000 away from this
yeah,
this goal here?
yeah. The new calling. That one is my business partner and co-designer Ricky. He's really excited for. Um, I think a good example of that calling would be The Boys. There's Stormfront, I think is her name. I'm not a super big fan of The Boys because, like I was saying, I like the like positive, good superheroes. But um, yeah, it's like kind of they're there to focus, or their goal is to become like famous and rich, kind of. And so that's what that calling is going to be if we hit that goal. I think we will. We're pretty close. And then at 300 backers, we're going to unlock printable power cards. So I'm going to make standard playing card size cards on documents, black and white and color, that you can print out and cut out so that you can use those instead of having to write them down on your character sheet. And so in combat, you have specific powers that you use for the most part. Um, and then outside of combat is where you have a lot of that freedom and creativity. Yeah, and speaking of classic comics, as we were talking about earlier, the collector's edition
I was just gonna
cover.
say.
Yeah, it's our artist. He was like, I don't know if I can do this very well. I've never done classic art. Or classic comic book style art. And then he knocked it out of the park. He did a lot of studying of Jack Kirby and a lot of other early comic book artists, and like even as he got so deep on the study that he was looking at like the facial expressions and how the faces are drawn, because it's very different from modern art. They have a lot more like surprised sort of facial expressions. So yeah, he's Milton Aguiar is our artist. He's really awesome. So yeah, does anyone else have some more questions? I think you guys are all muted, just so you know if you're asking me
Oh,
anything, at
very
least in the
strange.
chat.
Yeah, I was just saying that it was very cool, and congratulations on hitting your goal.
Yeah, thank you very
Es-
much.
Especially before that was what, 2 weeks?
Yeah, we hit our goal in 6 days, and then
Oh,
since then we're
Wow.
just going up. We've unlocked one stretch goal, which is something I'm super excited for. It's a community event. So when we hit 250 backers, we announced a event where everybody submits a character concept. They don't have to have art with them, but you have to just make a character with a character sheet and a backstory and things like that. And they submit them. And once we close the submission date, we'll do a community vote. And whoever wins, we will pay for their character to get art by our artist. And we will put them in the book and credit that person who won. So
Oh,
it'll be a
that's cool.
cool, yeah, really fun. We already got, I think we just posted that last Wednesday, and we already have 8 submissions, and I know of like 4 or 5 other people that are working on submissions. So it's going to be a lot of competition in that vote, but it's super exciting.
Mhm.
well, congratulations. Does anyone else have any questions for him? This is always kind of the like, I don't really know how long to give people to type stuff out.
Yeah, right.
Oh, and your Discord.
Yeah, thank you. And you can join our Discord, and we've got folks that are talking about the game there, and that's one of the 2 places you can submit one of your character concepts for that challenge. You can also email. We have an email. It's indominant@odinskey.com. But yeah,
Oh, I did have one more question. Just I missed it scrolling through the page. Do you have like a quick start or like a pre copy that people can look at of the game and the rules?
yeah, that's our primer. So we call it the game system primer. I think it's towards the top of the page. There's a link to it.
Awesome.
Um, you can get it on Drive Through RPG. We have it set up as a pay what you want. And then also, if you join our Discord, you can download it for free. It's that 196 page document I was talking about. And then we have a physical version of that. We recently removed it from Drive Through RPG just because we're working on some like updates and cleanups to the document. And then we'll put it back up on Drive-Thru RPG. And there's some folks that backed our backer kit and got that as well. But the PDF is completely free, and it's the physical copies $30, and it's a standard American comic book sized book. We really I love comics, and so we went for a lot of little nods like that to comic books where it's like a really weird size page, um, 6.625 by 10.25, and
Oh
that's
yeah.
American Standard comic book size page. So it's like slightly smaller than 8.5 by 11. But
All those little nods really add up, like the comic editor for the GM and stuff. That's really cool. Those are clever little Easter eggs. I like that.
yeah, thought it was important to pay homage to comics because I'm a huge comic book fan. So
For sure.
And we wouldn't have the.
And little details like that do help. Like in Call of Cthulhu, instead of the Game Master, it's called the Keeper.
hmm
Hmm.
yeah, I like thematic names like that even in a game.
The first game I ever got published was called "It Came from the Late 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 Show," and we actually used the term "the Director."
Hmm.
I
instead
have
of a
I have
master.
mentioned that game several times over the course of this show. Brain Soda was presented, I was like, this sounds like a game from the Late Late Show, and no one knew what I was talking about.
Oh, don't feel bad. Entire weeks go by that I don't think about it anymore.
Um, I was talking to someone the other day, and they asked what my familiarity was with Machinations of the Space Princess, and I was like, well, I've read about half of it, and it sounds like macho women with guns, and no one knew what I was talking about there either. I was like, yeah, I have all this obscure,
Oh, come
this
on. I love
obscure stuff.
Macho Women with Guns.
Macho women with guns is great.
Is
That
that the game by Stellar Games? Sorry.
no, that was by Blacksburg Tech, and I used to be friends with the owner, and he was like, "I am so embarrassed by this game, but this is our money. This is our cash cow at conventions. People might not want to pick up the you know 200-300 page book on time travel, but 20 pages of boobs and AK-47s for $8, sure, why not?
It has the skill running in high heels. I mean, how can you turn that down?
And nuns.
I mean,
That's
that is a
funny.
skill I have never managed to master in real life. So,
It came from the Late 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 Show, huh? That's
well,
Mhm.
very interesting.
Macho Women with Guns is the one that has the running in high heels. But
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we had any skills like that, though. You did have scream uncontrollably as a skill in Late Show.
well, yes. Mad Norseman, have a wonderful night.
Yeah. Have a good
He
night.
is heading out. Do we have any more questions on supers? Yes, running in high heels. See, in Macho Women with Guns, it is a superpower, as it should be.
So's I think not hitting yourself in the face if you run too fast and you don't have a sports bra on.
I don't remember that one, but I do remember. And then I think there was like running in extra high heels or something like that.
Oh, probably. There was no joke so tacky that Greg did not gleefully include it.
Yes, it was designed to be totally ridiculous.
Yeah.
I've
No,
only
I
been
guess
in
I
the
keep going.
industry a few years, but the longer I am, the more I'm convinced there's a role playing game for anything if you look hard enough.
Yeah.
And
I
quite
think that's a
and quite a
beautiful
few
part of
that you don't want to have found.
Yep, yep.
it. Yeah. There's like a game for everybody. And I think that's the beautiful thing about, stuff like RPGs.
Yeah, I my niece actually was astonished. We finally introduced her to the Dungeon Crawl Classics role playing games. Like, man, it would be cool if there was a Star Wars role playing game. It's like, oh boy, Amy, which Star Wars game do you want to try to play?
Yeah, someone asked me once if there was a Star Wars minis game. I was like, which one?
Yeah, which one?
Okay. If there
Thank
are
you,
no
Eraserhead.
if there are no other questions, I think that we will move on. Last but not least. So you may be the newest to the gaming industry, but you also started earlier than most of us probably. Well, I mean not playing. I started in third grade, but it definitely did not occur to me to make anything in middle school.
Yeah, oddly enough, I got into the making before I actually got into the playing aspect of it, just because I wasn't allowed to play D&D in middle school. And so I spent my first couple of years of game making just piecing together what I could from online articles and comics and stuff of like, how do these games work? Like, what do you get to do? You get to roll a dice and tell stories and stuff. So yeah, I was a game maker using the game term game generously long before I was a player, but I like to think that lent a bit of an interesting perspective to games as we kind of got into the development side of things. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit. You are in the second edition of your game, correct?
Yeah. So, Starset: The Great Dimming is the game that we've come out with most recently. It is in its second edition. It's kind of a grimdark Horror, I guess I would say. Yeah, I mean, probably horror. The setting is kind of like that the Oort cloud that surrounds the solar system is collapsing, and it's kind of cutting off this anarchy, super conglomerate type sci-fi future of humanity off from the rest of the solar system. And so the first edition actually came out back in like 2020, I think 2021 maybe, coming like right out of COVID. And so we were kind of wrestling with the themes of like isolation and hope, and like everybody was kind of stuck inside. And so we wanted to create a game that was like, well, what if humanity as a whole was kind of stuck inside the solar system? And we as people were kind of wrestling with like, well, what do we do when we can't distract ourselves, when we can't like go outside and, you know, do the work or the play or the whatever that would normally distract us from the things that get to us about ourselves or about people inside. And so we're like, that's a really interesting theme. I wonder if we just took humanity and all of the problems it has and locked it in a bubble, what kind of a setting could we make out of it? And so it kind of turned into this semi-realistic sci-fi, you know, process of kind of anarchy and corruption and stuff that you
So,
wrestle through in Starset.
so what was interesting to me when I looked at that was during COVID, those of us who don't like to leave our house will are fine with not leaving our house until we're told we can't leave our house.
Right.
And we are in fact stuck on this planet, and we're fine with that until I suppose the day we're told that we can't leave.
hmm And there's something too that's interesting about like, even as like I'm an introvert, like hardcore. I love my room here. You know, I got all my toys over on my shelf and my posters, and I'm happy right here. But there's something about when you can't leave that you start to realize how often you actually do. And like you can't see other people. And that's when you start to realize that even as an introvert, you kind of depend on other people being around. And same with like the solar system, you know, as we were kind of exploring the theme, and the artist that I was working with was kind of exploring like space travel and stuff. There's so much about like technology and about the future that we connect to space travel. And when you cut off the idea of like you can only go this far, it really kind of constrains the dreams and like the aspirations and the ideas that people have. And it kind of makes a setting that everybody's just kind of stir crazy, which is a lot of fun to play with. You can go in a lot of crazy directions, and we did. We had a good time with it.
There's a joke that, introverts need the extrovert that drag them out in public every so often. I am
Yep.
now trying to imagine humanity as being, a hive of introverts being dragged out into the social world by
Yep.
by an extroverted alien race.
That would be another cool setting. You never know. Maybe we'll go that direction at some point. Each of the factions actually in the game kind of play to that idea of like, well, okay, you don't have any hope leaving the solar system. So what kind of a hope do you have inside the solar system? And so you have one faction that's like art. Art is the the quintessential culture of who we are, and so art is going to be everything. And some people are like, well, we're all going to die, so we might as well make it as profitable and industrious as possible. And some people are like, science is the thing, you know, science is going to save us, so at any cost we will sacrifice anybody as long as we can make a scientific advancement. And you know, you have all of these other factions that play out in the lore, to kind of be like, well, what is it that's going to kind of pull us out of this dark place that we're in?
So is it a D20 system? Is it a D6 system?
Yeah, so it's a D6 dice pool system. So you create your character through a life path character creation system of like, you choose kind of a phase of life. So like you're a mercenary, or you're a soldier, or you're just a regular average Joe, or like you're a slave or something like that. And you then go into kind of an almost choose your own adventure type situation where you roll on this random table of 40 events that match the life, you know, phase that you've chosen, and then you make decisions for each of these 40 events that you roll. And the decisions that you make then connect you to factions, and they give you your starting items, and they give you your starting skills. And so your character kind of progresses as you make these life decisions. And the more decisions you make, the older your character gets. So by the time you choose to stop and actually start the game, your character has this whole internal lore that's built to them and that weaves them into the system. And sometimes you even get to create your own sub factions and your own character NPC companions and stuff. Yeah, similar to the Traveler system. Yeah, but we just kind of took it a couple steps beyond that. And then these keywords and stuff that you pick up affect even your like advancement, so you can go in different directions, whether they be good or bad, based on the events that you experienced in your backstory. But then all that to say, you, depending on the age of your character, you get your dice pool, which is kind of your action economy of dice that you can spend on your turn, but then that also doubles as your health. So kind of leaning back into like that grimdark horror aspect of, if you take damage, for each damage that you take, it reduces the number of dice you get to start your turn with. And so your action economy is kind of this downward spiral, and everything becomes a really difficult choice of like, are you just going to kind of cow to the powers that be, or are you going to like take a stand and take a risk, and face kind of this lethal situation once combat starts?
Wow.
So tell me a little bit about the factions.
Yeah, so there are 15 factions, I think, in there. And if you go to our Kickstarter page, thanks to Racerhead for posting that. There's actually even like a BuzzFeed quiz if you want to explore that, of like, what faction are you. But we kind of divided them into a couple different categories. So there's more of like, each of them are kind of vying for influence. And so you have four like governing factions that kind of have divided up the solar system. And you have the Supreme Republic, which is kind of the mega conglomerate that claims to represent everybody. But in doing that, they kind of rule with this total consensus. And so only in the setting, only like 8 laws have ever been passed, because there's like barely any consensus. And so it leaves these huge power vacuums where anybody in power can do pretty much whatever they want. And so nominally Supreme Republic is on top, and they really only control like Earth and the moon. And then right outside of that, you have the Marquis de Mars, which is this, kind of pompous royal administration that kind of leans into kind of the French aristocracy stereotype. And so they're all about decadence and luxury while the people are kind of starving. And so they're meant to kind of tackle this idea of entitlement and luxury and wealth. And then beyond that, you have the Ganymede Helix, who controls Jupiter, and all of their moons. And that's kind of your, I compare them almost to Comb from Dune, of like, they ship everything, they harvest everything, they rule pretty much everything in terms of like raw materials. And then beyond that, you have the Duchy of Despina, and they rule like the outer belt and the Kuiper belt, and they claim to be benevolent, and they're looking out for the common man, but they also extract taxes, and they have heavy fleets that kind of threaten everybody else. And so everybody's kind of dependent and afraid of them, but also likes them a little bit more. And so you have all of kind of these different approaches to government, and then you have different approaches to entertainment, and then there are factions that dig into science. You have like the Eris engineers that are super scientific, and they're the ones that are like taking people to undisclosed locations and experimenting on them to try and advance society. But then you also have like the Sept of Io, where they love science so much that they're basically just a cult, like another religion that's built around science. And then you have religious groups like the Pontificate, which is kind of this organized Christian group. um, and that was a lot of fun for me to explore, because I personally am a Christian, and during COVID, I found a lot of hope in my faith. But I also recognize that historically, there's a lot of issues that kind of arise with faith when it becomes power structured and hierarchical. And so it was interesting to kind of explore that dichotomy. So each faction is just meant to be kind of like something that offers hope, but then also the positives and the negatives of what it offers, if that makes sense.
Um, I have to ask you this question, and I apologize ahead of time because it's going to lead to a lot of age jokes, both for you and me.
No worries.
um, did you ever see Babylon 5?
I didn't. I've heard of it, but I've never seen it.
The reason I'm asking is that they have a lot of like when you were talking about the people into luxury, all I could think of were a group called the Centauri,
Mm.
um, who talks, like they're an empire that's kind of on decline, and
Mm-hmm.
now they're sort of trapped in this like trying to hang on to the glory days through wealth and riches and family names. And yes,
Yeah.
Eraserhead is correct. Babylon 5 is goated.
I'll have to check it out.
When
Hey, I will add it to
Um,
my list for sure.
when people say Star Trek or Star Wars, the correct answer is Babylon 5.
yes.
Woo!
And J. Michael Straczynski has flat out said in previous interviews that the Centauri were based on late Republic French.
Hmm.
So
Very interesting.
yeah, and it deals a lot with the aspects of religion because how do you take an Earth-based religion out to the stars?
Yeah.
They he's Jewish and he deals a lot with um, there are aspects of the Jewish religion that are earth, very earth based. And how do you do sunrise to sunset when you're in an entirely different solar system?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Next,
Ivanova gets into that. And the Narn have a whole thing where they have there's an entire episode based around the Narn needing to do this very specific ritual at a very specific time and how to deal with the the fact that they're not actually near their sun. Yeah, so
Mhm.
Eraserhead says being young is no excuse not to see Babylon 5.
I apologize.
Eraserhead is also a puppy. So
um,
I
I will.
apologize.
When you Josiah, when you sit down to watch Babylon 5, watch all of it because
Okay.
it is it is not episodic. It is, and this was Straczynski said he wanted to write it as a long form. He wanted to publish it as a long form novel on television. So
it
Hmm.
is.
he
It
had
is. Even
go
the
ahead.
Monster of the Week episodes like have something to do with the overall plot eventually.
Exactly. And if you
Cool.
miss, and if you choose to just miss a couple episodes, you may come back to going like, Where am I?"
Interesting. Well,
There
hey,
Um,
is
I
a
love stories, so I'd be
one,
excited to see how that plays out.
there
yeah,
is a preview movie. Do not watch it first because it will
no,
spoil so many like twists for you.
and don't
Okay.
bother watching the animated reboot from last year
Oh,
because
thank you. I thought I was the only person that hated that.
it was wretched.
Oh,
Oh
it was
no.
terrible. It was terrible.
Yeah,
It did not give me great hopes about the fact that he wants to reboot the series.
no,
Oof.
I that is one of those series that it was a lot of the acting was lightning in a bottle of they found just the right actors to play just the right roles, and if they have to recast them, you, it would be like trying to redo original Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
You're not
Well,
going
I
to
can
replace
imagine.
Shatner, Nimoy, and DeKelly.
Mm-hmm.
there aren't enough Shakespearean actors doing television these days to like
Well,
Jakar does not work if he's not a Shakespearean actor.
yeah. Well, if I remember correctly, Peter Jurassic, the guy that plays the main Centauri, he teaches acting.
Oh
Well, but
wow.
see, he's still alive.
Hmm.
The issue is that like half of the cast is
Over
dead. So
Mm.
half the cast has passed away, and there has been
quite tragically.
only
Oh.
slight joking references to the Babylon 5 curse because a lot of them died fairly young.
Yeah,
Oh
very much
no.
so. So
Sounds like he needs to get a new herd and train him up.
just because
Good
just
luck on that.
because just because I'm getting poked, Battlestar Galactica is also a lot of fun, but
I
it
have
does
seen
not
Battlestar Galactica, like OG Battlestar Galactica.
Okay.
Loved it.
but it is not it's not the same. I mean that is an adventure
Hmm.
straight up. Well, I mean Star Wars is kind of an adventure straight up too. That's cowboys and Indians in space.
Right.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know. I've always loved the sci-fi that asks like what if.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Original Battlestar Galactica was a lot of popcorn as opposed to the reboot that was like, here, where this is going to take you to some uncomfortable places philosophically,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
No.
yeah, I mean like I think Babylon 5, so my mother used to joke that I was emotionally stunted because I didn't cry at ET even when I was a little kid. Babylon 5 was the first television show to ever make me cry
Oh wow.
in like multiple places.
Wow. That's pretty high praise.
Yeah, there, and the end of the whole series, you're like, I'm not ready for these guys to go away.
Mm, mm-hmm.
I don't want Sheridan to die.
Hey, hey, no spoilers.
Oops. Well, oh yeah. By the way, one of the characters dies.
I mean, several of the characters die, but
Yeah,
Yikes. I mean, hey, if you get Star Set, you can expect that too. I mean, it's a pretty lethal, but it sounds like that's something that I definitely should watch because like we're
yeah,
trying to. That's kind of the effect that we're trying to get of like putting you in uncomfortable places where it's like relatable enough that you're emotionally attached to like the
mm,
story and the characters that you've created in the setting, but also like distant enough that you can just enjoy the game for what it is and that you can, once the session is over and people are like, dang, like that just happened, that everybody could be like, that actually kind of reminded me of this other thing. And then you can kind of get to know the other players better of like talking about what's actually going on in your world and your life and stuff too. So that emotional like aspect of it is definitely something that we're trying to pull to.
yeah. One of the best gaming experiences I ever had. Uh, I don't know how the game master pulled it up. We were 6 sessions in of playing the game before we actually got to any sort of combat.
Well,
But the great thing was that rather than like D&D, where it's like, okay, I made up this character 2 minutes ago. Oh, he died. Oh well, shucky darn. I guess I'll make up a replacement for what's his name.
mm-hmm,
I had already been playing this guy for a month and a half or so of regular gaming. I was a lot more attached to him. So that's something to think about. Like combat is good, but if you can get your people actually involved in the character enough,
mm-hmm,
and probably running them through the life paths or whatever you call them,
mm-hmm,
it's like, oh, I spent 2 years working as a miner on
mm-hmm.
these asteroids.
stakes are
Yeah,
important.
that's really what we're going for is that emotional attachment to the character and to the story because it is really different. Like I've had friends who played like Dungeons and Dragons kind of move over into the star set system, and
Hmm.
the mentality is really different of like, I want to create a halfling rogue who has this personality and does these things and have these abilities. And like that's fun. I mean, I really enjoy D&D. We have a weekly D&D group and I love those guys. I love those characters, but like that kind of mindset doesn't necessarily translate over because you almost meet your character and you get to know them and they surprise you and like they're still a result of your decisions, but they're not someone that you've just kind of picked together and then rolled up stats for. It's more
Right.
like a natural organic thing, and
Like,
then it's designed to kind of get you connected before you start that gameplay.
yeah.
See, that is the most for me. The games I play and the games I run are very, very different, and
Mm,
I tend to be really finicky about both. Um, so that right there is the thing that grabs me immediately is
mm,
that idea of like getting to not just there being stakes because you showed up at the gaming table the first session with a 20-page backstory, but like you said, getting to kind of meet meet the inner workings of your own brain in some cases.
Hmm.
yeah, and we put a lot of work into it. Like, so the book is about 400 pages, a little bit over, but all of this portion of it here is just the backstory plot things. There's over 400 different plot points based on the decisions that you make, and then you pick up the keywords along the way. So each plot point of the like 450 will have anywhere from 2 to 4 5 or even 6 different results based on the decisions that you've already made in the character creation system. So we've had people, play the game and then be like, I just kind of want to create a character again because like that in and of itself was kind of like a mini role playing game.
Mhm.
So it
That,
does create
that's
some
a good
cool
sign.
experiences.
That's one of the great fun of the old champion system is you could just, even if you weren't actually in a campaign, you could just sit there and make up characters and just have a blast.
Yeah, yeah, and your character can die too during character creation, and that
Uh,
has
you,
its own mechanical
Sweet.
impact.
you might want to change that because original Traveler is still being made fun of for that little detail.
I
Oh yeah, no,
I
we. Oh, go
I on
ahead.
the other hand love paranoia for exactly that detail.
No,
Mm-hmm.
it's
Because
I think
your
it's a
character
funny
could.
little thing. Yeah.
well, yeah. In Paranoia, you want your you basically want your character to die in the most spectacular and insane fashion possible. For example, accidentally setting off a 10, 10 megaton nuke only 5 feet away.
Yeah, it's
Jeez.
intended to be sci-fi horror comedy all rolled into one. But
Yeah.
so
But
I want to ask before we get too much later. You're going into the second edition. Where do you think you're cleaning things up, making changes? What's different about the second edition, and why should people late back it?
Yeah, so we cleaned up the visuals of it a lot. We got better art, better illustrations, better just page design and user interface. We also added some really fun little subsystems. So because journeying is like such a big part, whether it's space travel or exploring planets, there's a whole like journeying system now where you actually like plot on a map that we include, how many miles or how many we have our own like spacefaring units. You're traveling, and then you have to resolve events for it, and those events will contribute to your characters almost like mini background events, and so that just keeps that aspect of the game more dynamic and interesting. And then we also added a big library of actions. So in the game, there's a lot of like very specific skills because we wanted to make it a pretty realistic system, but people weren't always sure how to use some of the skills. Like we discerned between being able to sing and being able to play an instrument instead of just grouping them all as music. And so some people, like for example, my brother is much more into like tabletop war games and like um, more like miniature games, and so they weren't necessarily sure how to translate that over to a role-playing game. And so we include a library in the book of options for you to choose from, so you can do like any of the skills. You can look up what your character is good at, and then there's like 4 or 5 different recommendations of how to use it, and then the specific mechanical impact of what will happen depending on what you roll. So it's a big book, but it's actually a lot more user friendly because then you don't have to do this constant back and forth with the overlord, which is our version of the GM. Or you want to wonder, well, is my character just good at stuff that kind of sucks? Or is, how am I supposed to play this? Now you know, and you can kind of plan ahead for that. So that was a really fun new subsystem. And then we just built out the character creation more. We added more options, we added more variation. The keywords that you pick up during your backstory, we added a lot more variation to how that changes your character as you develop. So, like, if you pick up the insanity keyword now, instead of that just affecting your character's like stats, now it actually gradually makes it harder and harder and harder for you to cope with certain skill rolls, and then eventually you die. And so, unless you use your leveling up points to counteract that, then you have this kind of tragic ending to your character. And so it adds a lot more tension to the leveling up process. So just little things, quality of life things like that, that just keep it fresh, keep it exciting, and make it just more of a cool book to have on your table.
This line, "The world is burned by the hypocrisy of heroes," that is a great line, and I need you to make a T-shirt.
Make a what?
A T-shirt.
Oh, ooh, that would be really cool.
Yeah.
Actually, we're working on apparel ideas as we're kind of rolling out the game and preparing to put it on our website. So I might have to steal that.
If you make an all cotton T-shirt that says "The world is burned by the hypocrisy of heroes," I will buy it. I will tell you that right now.
Awesome. Well, hey, I'm in the Discord now, so I'll be sure to post it if we create one.
I I have gone to. I will not buy like fast fashion
Mm,
stuff anymore. I'm only buying like all wool or all cotton.
mm,
But yeah, you come up with a cotton T-shirt, and I will absolutely. That's just
awesome.
that is such a great line.
Thank you. Yeah, we were trying to find something that just kind of captures what we're going for. And that second part too of and yet dares you to become one, I feel like is kind of the dynamic that we're going for there. Like the world doesn't really trust anybody and yet it's still looking for someone to trust. And so you as a character have to wrestle with that. As your GM, yes, you can totally wear a cape if you would like to. Maybe we'll
You
have to
mean as
roll.
the Overlord?
Oh yeah, as the Overlord. Yep.
I man, the black and white art. Well, I mean, the art in general. This entire like episode has been amazing on everything.
I
Oh, that's
think
cool.
I was going to
The
comment that
this
from what I've seen, the art is pretty astonishing.
this guy in the corner there is. That's kind of an interesting way. So I am currently editing a role playing game that's in
Mhm.
production,
Oh,
and there has been a lot of like discussion around format and trying to like find ways to put like tiny graphics in just to keep it from being kind of boring, and that's very clever.
Thank you. Had a lot of fun with that. That was one of the quality of life things we really wanted to work on. Wanted the pages to be more readable, but also more interesting to look at. And so figuring out how to work in those little illustrations and the icons around the actions too to be able to track with them easier and kind of break up some of the text was a big improvement.
yeah, layout is very difficult. I
Mhm.
learned how to do book layouts for our free primer, but uh, I'm not going to do ours for the the backer kit book.
Mm.
We're going to have a professional because I'm not a professional. Because for stuff like you're talking about, right? Like knowing where and how to put little things, and yeah, I just don't have the eye for that kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I know it looks good, but I don't know how to make it look good necessarily.
Well,
Laying out a laying out a book it laying out a book, especially like a game book where there's a lot of visual elements, is a real trick because I've noticed this even from some large publishers, and this is probably a problem from with hiring layout people who prioritize making it look good over functionality. It's like, ooh, this book is beautiful. It's gorgeous. I can't find anything in here.
Well, see,
So you always
that's
have
the
to kind
thing
of
is that
find this balance between the functionality and still making it look good.
Mhm.
And I've personally found if you have to choose functionality over looking good, you should probably go that way.
Mhm.
yeah, this is I'm just editing, so like the book layout I don't have to worry about, but there are sections where I'm like, this isn't gonna make sense to people unless you have a visual, or if these things are separated, it's not gonna make
Mhm.
sense. Are you gonna have a visual to take up this half of the page so that I can move this down to make it make sense? Because
Mhm.
otherwise, you need to rewrite this whole section. Um,
Um, my wife used to do layouts, and we had one particular author that we had to work with that would put everything in these incredibly complicated uh, uh, I just blanked on the word. When it's just like a list of a whole bunch of different options.
Mm. Like an
And
index.
what's that?
bullet points.
No, but
Index?
it was an absolute nightmare to try to lay out and have it look other than utter garbage when you would have one option that would be like one line of text and the next option would be like 9 lines of text.
Yeah.
Try and make that look good. You're basically tearing your hair out.
Yeah, I'm kind of blessed because I'm a communications. My degree is in communications, and then I have my minor in graphic design.
There you
So
go.
when I'm writing and designing, it works pretty well. I would still obviously learn a ton. We have to have a second edition, but I do freelance work as a designer for other people's role playing games, and it's so difficult to walk that line when it's somebody else's baby, and you're trying to be like, I really think we need to lean more in this one direction or the other.
It's not
Mhm.
that I'm trying to take over your project. It's just that, yeah, I've been there.
Oh,
Um, I
I
last
was.
qu-
Go ahead.
sorry,
Sorry.
I'm gonna have to cut this a little short because we're getting a little low on time, and there's a question in the chat, and I want everyone to have time to plug their stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So the leveling, there aren't classes. It's pretty free form. So all of your skills and your keywords and your items are based on the origin that you choose and then the life path that you end up having. And then your leveling up is really natural too. So when you roll your dice pool, if you roll three of a kind, then you get a skill point. And so it kind of incentivizes you to try and roll as often as possible, and then you naturally get better the more you use your skills. And then at the end of each session, there's also questions like discussion questions. And so you can get skill points by answering the discussion questions as well. And they're just things of like brainstorming, how did your character work well with another person's character? Or how does this connect to something that you're going through in real life or that you thought about this week? Again, trying to kind of build a connection between the players, because that's really what Hoodwink is all about, is trying to build kind of those in-person friendships using the game as just like a vehicle. So you're guaranteed some XP options, and then you can spend the XP, whether you get them from dice or from the discussion, on improving your skills, adding new keywords, or removing bad keywords that are kind of hurting your character.
I like that. I like the using skills to improve them. We have a system in that actually in our game. Our skills, the more you use them, you get better at them. So,
It's a really fun, like, natural progression system.
hmm
Yeah.
So I love it when the conversation is going so well that we're kind of in danger of running over. So I do encourage everyone to kind of take the discussion into the Discord and ask any questions that didn't get answered, or if you wake up tomorrow morning and you've got a whole bunch of different questions, just ask them, and hopefully these gentlemen will all be there to answer. Um,
yeah,
or Brad, if you're not going to be on the Discord, you mentioned you had your Facebook too. So
Yep, and I pretty much have that tab open all the time. So if you need to talk to me, you know, I'm there.
nice. Um, yes, and Eraser, being the super mod that he is, there is the Discord. All right. Well, we are down to the last 5 minutes, so I'm going to have everyone, if you want to sign off, plug your stuff, tell us what events you have coming up. We've kind of covered the Kickstarter and everything, but if you have any other events, interviews, whatever that you'd like us to know about, please let us know. And then we will play our little outro song. And then I will meet anyone backstage if you have questions or anything for me from the panel. Brad, you want to tell us what's up with you and where you're going to be and where people can find you if they need you?
Um, Facebook is my primary. Just I think it's just Bradley K. McDevitt. Uh, I'm always available to talk, chat, and offer jokes and wisdom, and not jokes and wisdom. Uh, Other than that, just look for me on social media. Yeah, uh, I'm on X, I'm on Blue Sky, I'm on DeviantArt, Pinterest, and probably a couple other that aren't springing to mind right now. Uh, Other than that, I'm just going to be cranking on stuff for Goodman Games, Wayward Studios, and Horse Shark Games, and Stardust Publications. And other
So,
than
so
that,
you're our insider resource to make sure that Goodman Games doesn't forget us about Mutant Crawl Chronicles, right?
okay, I can poke I can poke Joe about it. He's running the company full time, so he usually is spinning about 12 plates at any one time.
That was what they said, was that something was just getting released and they were like, we're interested, but we can't deal with anything else right now.
Yeah.
I was like,
Well, he
understandable.
well he used to have a real world job, but now that he's doing Goodman Games as his job, period,
Hmm.
he's finding he has to devote a lot more time to it, especially with everything going on in the real world. He's having to try and figure out, okay, how do we keep the business going comfortably when we're going to when our revenue stream has suddenly dried up. So he like I said, he's probably got about 2 dozen plates spinning at any one time right now.
I'm
Plus,
super impressed by his multitasking.
he's a little league coach for his son's little league team.
oh, nice. That's
Oh, so Eraserhead, you have a fellow non-sleeper.
awesome.
My wife and I joke, and we have seen this at Gen Con. He would be at the booth working, and I kid you not, he had a Red Bull in one hand and a Mountain Dew in the other. And no, I am not joking or making this up. It's like
So I might have been guilty of that at one point in my life,
he
which
does
is
it all
why.
the time.
Well, I had to become really careful about making sure I got enough sleep because it was really being a problem. The chat has heard this story, but um, so I don't dream in pictures as we mentioned earlier, but I dream in emotions, and when I don't sleep a lot, they get really vivid. So I was having this really vivid dream because I hadn't slept in like 3 days. Um, and then all of a sudden, the little voice in the back of my head that never goes to sleep ever went, "Hey, who's driving?"
Oh shit.
And it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was on the interstate.
Oh,
Um,
That's generally
so
not a good thing.
so
yeah.
that was the point where I was like, I am going to make myself start sleeping like a real human being. And it took some doing, but yeah, that was the end of that. So I now have 1 cup of coffee a day, maybe one and a half at the most. But yeah, no more marathons.
Okay. And I need to get off here anyhow because I've still got an illustration to finish for Goodman yet tonight. So it has been a pleasure, folks.
Thank you
Nice,
so much. It
nice,
has been
nice
wonderful.
meeting
It
you
was
all, and I
fascinating.
Great
will
to meet you.
try and
Yeah.
keep an eye out for stuff.
Nice
Have a
Yes,
meeting
have
you.
a
great
great
night.
night.
Yeah, you too.
Right.
Zarek, tell us where we can find you. What's going on?
Yeah. So Backer Kit is where we're really busy right now. We also have our own website, odinskey.com. And then we're on social media, but we're not super active on like Instagram, Facebook. We are pretty active on YouTube. We're kind of start back up being active, having weekly posts there. So yeah, I mean, BackerKit and Discord are probably the best places to go, though. Discord, you can ask it questions. I'm always in our chat asking questions or checking out people's character submissions or character concepts when they share them. Um, and yeah, it's very, very exciting. Um, Lots of fun.
Um, Eraser, is it possible for you to find? Oh, never mind.
I was
See,
gonna
I
say I
told
could
you.
draw.
I told you
Mhm.
he's amazing. I hadn't even gotten the question out of my mouth, and he had the Discord up.
You must have joined the Discord server sometimes, sometime recently.
I think he just has his own superpowers.
Yeah, probably.
He should make and pitch a character based on himself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, and definitely if people want to participate in that, that would be great. I love just seeing people's characters. There's some really creative ones on there.
Mhm. Oh, I think you might have accidentally gotten muted.
Oh
Oh,
yeah, go your. There
Oh,
you
there.
go.
I don't know that I accidentally. I sometimes will mute myself while I'm shuffling between screens because otherwise this mic picks up a lot of stuff. But so Josiah, tell us where you're going to be, what's going on. If people have questions, where can they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So we also have a website, hoodwinkgaming.com. We have a message, portal there, but honestly, shoot me an email anytime, Josiah at hoodwinkgaming.com. I am on my email probably all the time. So I usually can get a response off pretty quickly there. We're shooting for production on the game in like late June. So we're still doing late pledges for that, and anybody is welcome. We have a couple different pledge tiers that are, different options in there. So we'd love to have people involved. And then we're actually launching a living lore program for the book also. So every month we're going to be doing events, kind of like Helldivers orders, where you get to vote on an in-game event, and then the in-game event will have a mechanical change to the character creation or to the world, or you can even submit lore based on your campaigns and stuff. And so we're going to launch all of that just once the book releases later in the summer. So we'd love to have everybody involved. That's all going to be through the website and through our Discord. So love to hear from you. Would love to hear your thoughts and see some session reports and stuff there.
Awesome. Um, you said that you had signed up for the Discord for the herd. Okay.
Yep.
You mentioned that you do some um design. Was it design work for other games?
I do. Yep, freelance design.
If you go all the way down to the bottom of the Discord, there is a section that is specifically for if people are looking for artists or editors or layout
Ooh,
or whatever. So,
very cool. Well, we'll
uh,
keep an eye there too. We're always looking for artists to help on projects too. So I'll keep an eye there for sure.
okay. All right. So, everyone, I want to thank you very much for being here. Chat, you have been wonderful as always. Um, happy to have so many people and happy to have new faces in the chat again. That is always great. We
Mhm.
are over 80 people in the Discord and climbing, considering the Discord is literally a week old.
Oh, really? I didn't know it was that old. I thought I had just missed your Discord for a while.
Yeah,
No,
that's really impressive.
so you guys literally are going to be the last stream I ever have where one of you is in Facebook chat and one of you is in Twitter chat and one of you is in Discord. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't find everyone, so I'm just going to do everything through Discord. So yeah, I just started the Discord, and it's been booming.
Yeah,
Nice.
awesome.
The actual conversation kind of comes and goes in waves, as you know, chunks of people are in the Midwest and chunks of people are in Europe. So
Hmm.
so you get these waves of conversation at 4 o'clock in the morning. Um,
Yeah,
but so I want to thank everyone again. In case anyone is unfamiliar, I am also Eclectic Goat Editing. Things have also been kind of gotten really busy there, but I am going to be taking contracts for probably, I think I'm booked till probably the end of June, maybe the beginning of June if nothing goes wrong and I can get things done quickly. Um, so um, I just want to make that available to people. I
yeah,
know somebody said that they were looking at a game in the chat. And at the end of this month, this will be the only show that I am going to be keeping going. Everything else is going to be pre recorded. I am still doing indie author interviews, but those will be pre recorded mainly because my next several are from like 6 hours ahead, and that was just too rough on them to try and do that at 6 o'clock my time.
hmm,
So those will be pre recorded. The first pre recorded one will still be dropping on the 5th. Next week will be the last of the shows you've never seen. We're going to be finishing up the first season of Carnival. And I am still plugging away at my history of the zombie movie. The script is officially begun, and I will continue writing that as I continue gorging on a very long history of horror movies. Um, so I hope that everyone has a great night.
yeah. Thank you
Oh,
very much,
and Rachel
everybody.
Have a good
Rachel's
night, everyone.
apparently we have several people working on books. That is awesome.
Wow.
Creativity is great.
Hmm.
So everyone have a wonderful night, and we hope to see you back in the chat next week.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye.
Happy headbutting.
Awesome.
Meet me at the tavern, have a drink or two. I'm the eclectic goat, and I'm here to gab with you. We'll talk about immersion, adventure heavy lows, characters and story, warlocks and barbarians and bards, comedy or horror. We got inspiration if you're in need of it, or just need to hang out somewhere cozy. We're the guys for you, we've got time for you. Come and join the crew, here's what to do. Meet us at the tavern, have a drink or two. I'm the eclectic goat, and I'm here to play with you. We'll discuss the theory and the mechanics, how we ask for crits, Dungeons and Dragons and Wizards. meet us at the tavern, have a drink or two. I'm the eclectic goat, and I'm here to play with you. We'll discuss the theory and the mechanics, how we ask for crits, Dungeons and Dragons and Wizards.